Okay, well, it's great to have you guys here. I'm Steve Wingfield, and Barbara and I have been married 45 years on June the 8th. Been blessed by God in a lot of ways. We have two children, our daughter Michelle, and she has six, and our son David is married, and they have two children. So we are very, very thankful. We've been living in Harrisonburg, Virginia for about 36 years now. I graduated from Eastern Mennonite College. That's where I met Barb. And so God's been mighty good to us. I pastored for 8 years in Roanoke, Virginia, and then worked for another evangelist for 3 years as his director. And I had a year of seminary before I began pastoring. I was going to go there for 2 years, and that turned into 8 years. But I felt like have some pastoral experience would make me a better evangelist. But I felt called of God to be an evangelist from the very get-go. And went to Trinity to finish up my seminary and have been involved in full-time evangelism now for about 36 years. And God's been so faithful, and just enjoying life and enjoying seeing people come to Jesus. That's what it's all about as far as I'm concerned. You want to talk about the Lodestar Mountain Inn? Okay. Where we are here at the Lodestar Mountain Inn, this is our first official meeting, and we're thankful you're here. I'm honored to be a part of it with Dr. Tim, and I've enjoyed teaching at Multnomah several times over the past several years, but this has just been a dream. I mean, it was not even on my radar. 3 years ago, I got a call from a friend of mine who's an attorney and also does real estate in Franklin, West Virginia, and said, I got a piece of property I want you to look at. And my response was, I don't have money for property. I'm a preacher. He said, I feel like the Lord wants you to see it. I said, Jeff, I'll come over and look at it. Enjoy being with you. Enjoy being outdoors. And so I came over. He had an ATV on the back of his truck. And we drive out here and offload the ATV down just below here with the original entrance, Walnut Springs Lane, and got on it and drove up here and got basically where the house is right now. And it was as clear as one of you said to me, this property belongs to Paul Weaver. Paul's a great friend and been a great supporter of our ministry for many years. And I didn't tell Jeff what had happened, but I said, I think I might know who wants it. And so we spent the morning looking around and enjoyed it very, very much. Went home, and I waited a couple of days. I don't know why I waited, but I did. And I picked the phone up, and I said, Weaver, I don't know what this is about, but a friend of mine called me and said, there's a piece of property he wanted me to look at. And I came over and looked at it, and as I got to this one spot, I felt like the Lord said, this property belongs to you. And he interrupted me. He said, Wingfield, I got cold chills. He said, Gladys is not looking for property. We're leaving Thursday to go to Canada. She didn't want to go. It's too far away. I'm going to counsel that. I'll come down on Monday. So I called Jeff and made arrangements, and he brought out two ATVs. Already had them out here. We met at his office in Franklin, and I drove out here, and he and Gladys got on one, and Jeff and I on the other, and we got up basically right here, and he jumps out and said, this place is unbelievable. It's everything I ever dreamed of. And his wife said, I'm not easily impressed, but I'm impressed. At that point, the only thing that was here was the farmhouse down here, the original farmhouse, and two outbuildings. And so we spent the morning looking around, saw deer, bear, turkey. It was a great day. And Jeff's wife had packed us a picnic lunch, and so we're down eating lunch, and Paul points back up here and said, that's where we're going to put the first house. I said, okay, we ought to commit that to the Lord. And so we've packed everything up and came back up, got out, knelt down, and I prayed a prayer of commitment. And he stands up, and he had a snake pistol with him, and he emptied it up toward North Mountain and said, that seals the deal. Well, it was on the market for $1,799,000. It was, it's 524 acres. Everybody that looks at it feels it's probably over 800 acres. It hadn't been surveyed since 1876, I think it was. But we see no need to get it surveyed. It's surrounded on three sides by the Monongahela National Forest, which means we control probably about 2,000 acres because the mountain is so steep. If you came down, you couldn't pull anything out if you were shooting, hunting, whatever. So anyway, that's where it all started. The lady that was selling it found out what we wanted to do, and she lowered her price, and my friend gave up his commission, and Paul wrote a check for $1,040,000 to the ministry, and we bought it. Since then, the house that we're in right now, all the doors, windows, siding, stone, timber was all donated. The roof was donated. We've had 5 tractor-trailer loads of material donated over the past 2 years. So this is the first house, and about it'll be 3 years ago in August, I was on my way to Bristol to the race. We do NASCAR races. That's our primary evangelistic outreach now. And I saw these logs stacked up on the side of the road with a sign on it for sale. But I didn't have time to stop. And in my head, I thought it was in Southwest Virginia. And so after the race, I was speaking somewhere else, and I went home a different direction. But for the next year, I kept looking for these. I said, well, I guess somebody bought them. They're gone. Actually, the logs were about 30 miles south of my house. But you had to turn and look back to see them. And I was going to Roanoke one day, and I saw them, and I whipped in and got the number and wrote it down. And you'll meet Brandon in a little bit. I called the number, and I said, I'm interested in those logs that you got for sale. And he says an Appalachian accent. He said, I've been trying to sell them things for over a year. I said, I believe the Lord saved it for me. And he said, well, people just want to buy them and saw them up. And he said, I want them to find a home. I said, I got a home for it. I want to make a chapel out of it. And that sort of sparked his interest, and we kept talking. And so I said, well, why don't you just come over and look where I want to put them? And so he agreed to meet me over here the following Monday, and he parked right down here where somewhere you parked, and gets out of his truck. And first thing he said to me is, my wife told me that God brought you to my life for such a time as this. I said, Brandon, I need to meet her. I like the way she thinks. He said, she also told me not to rip you off. I said, well, you wouldn't be ripping me off. You'd be ripping God off. You don't want to go there. So anyway, his partner was with him. We go down, and I showed him where I wanted to put the chapel. And so we were talking, showed him the direction I wanted it to go, overlooking the ponds. And he said, well, I'll tell you what, preacher, I paid $12,000 for those logs. I'll let you have it for 12, and I'll put it up for you. So that's where the chapel came from. And his partner.
Do you have to know the logs?
No, they were old. It was a log cabin built in, I think, 18-something that they had taken down. Oh. And so I said, well, let's go down and look at the old farmhouse, because some of that's a log house too. It's got siding on it. Maybe I'll get you to refurbish that after we do this. So we go down, and I'm telling him what I want to do. And his partner said, well, I took a barn down a year ago. I'll just give you that, and we'll use that to add on. I said, man, that's awesome. So I said, y'all measure everything up. I'm going to go up and make us lunch. So I did. And we're sitting out here on the back patio eating lunch. And I said, it's been a great morning. I got my chapel. You go get the material to add on the farmhouse. I said, I may as well tell you my other dream. I want to put a barn up here and put bunkhouses in it so we can have youth groups up here. And, so he said, I got a guy in Pennsylvania that wants me to take his barn down, but he wants a lot of money for it. It's built in 1830. It's held together by pegs. He said, it's in really good shape. I said, where is it? He said, Chambersburg. I said, we did a festival in Chambersburg. He might know me. He said, I don't know about that. I said, why don't you call him? So the next day I'm at my office in Harrisonburg, and the phone rings, and Jason, and he's crying. And he's a grown man. I said, what's going on? He said, I've never been a part of anything like this. I said, what are you talking about? He said, well, I called Mr. Miller, and I told him, I think I found a place for your barn, and a guy thinks you might know him. He said, what's his name? He said, Steve Wingfield. He said, I'm sitting here wearing a T-shirt that he gave me 12 years ago when I helped put the tent up. He said, you tell him he can have it. So I said, give me his number. And I called him. I changed everything. I drove to Jamesburg, took him to lunch. And he said, it's the strangest thing. I hadn't worn that shirt in forever. But I opened the drawer the night before, and I saw it and said, yeah, I think I'll just put this on and pray for Steve tonight. And next morning I get a phone call. And I mean, so you can't make that stuff up. It's got that barn has been taken down and it's stored here. That's going to be our next project. That's going to be our event center. So next time you come back, that's where we'll have our meetings in the event center. We're going to put some bunkhouses in it and also a couple of bedrooms in it. And about that time too, I found out about a house, log house built in 1840 in Augusta County, Virginia. It has 9-foot ceilings. And that's what's going up at the top of the hill. We took that down. Jason and Brandon took it down and brought it up here. And that should be finished. We'll go through it probably tomorrow. I'll show it to you. But
Civil War by 20 years.
Yep. And these guys have. If you ever seen barn builders on television, that's what they do. They take stuff down and reclaim it and preserve it. And so that's going to be the Evangel House. And each room is going to be named after somebody that has impacted my life, either through their writings or Bob Coleman, Dr. Bob Coleman, Master Plan of Evangelism, one of my mentors. And that's why I chose to go to Trinity, because of Dr. Coleman. So there's going to be the Coleman room, George Whitfield room, Peter Cartwright, and Sheffey. Sheffey was a circuit riding Methodist evangelist in Southwest Virginia. Bob Jones University made a movie out of it. You should watch it. He was a man of faith, had his prayer blanket, rode his horse all over the place, and there are people still today that visit his grave every year in Southwest Virginia. He rode all over there. He gave up a fortune to follow the Lord. He's from a very wealthy family and walked away from it all. Impacted my life greatly. And even in his old age, they'd take him and sit him in a chair by the side of the road, and he'd talk to people about Jesus. So, kind of guy you want to be. So that's how all this got started. And my heart's desire is to equip and train evangelists here, motivate pastors. Pastors are in almost as much trouble in the U.S. as military. Military touched my heart through NASCAR. We're losing 22 a day to suicide. If you were there last night, you heard my son-in-law talk about an email that he got from his brother, and one of the guys that was on his brother, my son-in-law's brother, was a Ranger before he got out, and in Afghanistan and Iraq, and one of his squad killed himself yesterday. It's sad. I could tell you stories all night long of people that we've met through NASCAR. NASCAR loves military. They love this nation. I was unaware of what was going on. We were at Darlington a number of years ago, and had a double amputee from Iraq that shared his testimony. And following the evening, we were sitting backstage, and he asked me a question that really nailed me to the wall, but really changed the direction of our ministry in many respects, and opened a huge door for evangelism. And his question was, where's the most dangerous place to serve in the U.S. military? And I said, Afghanistan. And he said, you're wrong. I said, what do you mean? Something going on I don't know anything about? He said, evidently. And I said, what are you talking about? He said, we're going to lose more to suicide than we will on the battlefield. And it was like cold chills. That's when I found out there's 22 a day that are killing themselves. Most homeless men in America are Vietnam veterans. I had a Vietnam veteran last night that came to me after we had honored veterans and said, when I came home, I couldn't wear my uniform. He said, I've been yelled at, I've been cursed at, I've been spit on. But tonight I was honored. So that's why we do what we do. And last year, 2 years ago at Michigan, I came off the platform, and there's a guy my age that literally fell into my arms. And if I hadn't held him up, he'd have fallen to the ground. And weeping uncontrollably, kept finally got to start saying, thank you, man, thank you. Thank you, sir. And he told me the same thing. When I came back from Vietnam, people yelled at me, cursed me. I had one person spit on me. He said, tonight's the first time in 40 years I felt honored. I prayed with him, turned, and there was a young guy, 19 years of age, tears running down his face. I said, what's going on? He said, you nailed me to the wall tonight. I said, what do you mean? He said, I got back from Afghanistan 3 weeks ago, and I was going to come to the race this weekend and pull the trigger on Monday, but Jesus rescued me tonight. So prayed with him. The next weekend I was preaching at the 100th anniversary of a Methodist church not far from us, and they'd rented a community center because they expected a crowd and stuff. And afterwards, I was helping the praise band pack up, and the drummer came to me, had his head on backwards, and he said, keep doing what you're doing, man. I said, no, I plan to. He said, it's a desperate need out there. I said, I know that. And he said, I should be a statistic. I said, tell me your story. He said, he got back from Iraq. He said, I took a 9mm. He took his head off. He had an indentation here. He said, but he had it at an angle. He said, through that I came to Jesus. The next weekend, I'm preaching at Thomas Road Baptist Church, much larger church in Lynchburg. And it's changed what we do at churches, because I used to just say, how many veterans we got here? And whoever's hand I saw go up first, I would say, come here, I'm going to show you what we do. And this guy came up, I medaled him. We have a medal that we created. It just says, we honor you for your service. And has John 15:13, greater love hath no man, and laid down his life for his friends. This guy started weeping, went and sat down, and all during the service I was preaching, he's got his face in his hands. And after the invitation, he came up and said, I guess you wonder what's going on? I said, yeah. He said, my son's a statistic. He said he got back from Iraq and killed himself. That's 3 weeks in a row. And the 22 a day does not touch spouses or children that are also killing themselves. It's a crisis that we will pay for generations to come. And most people are unaware of it. So, but I've been involved in Lodestar, which is a leadership program and I'll talk to you more about that later, and I'll show you some of it too. But the 48 principles, a lot of them are fruit of the spirit principles, but 48 principles. And it's been around for about 25 years. My friend Paul Weaver created it for his business. He owns Weaver Leather in Holmes County, Ohio. They have about 400 employees. And 4 years ago, he asked me to get involved in it to sort of take it to another level, because there's a written program. So what we did, we wrote a storyboard for each of the principles, 48 principles. And then we videoed those principles. Each one is totally different. Like accountability is a NASCAR crew changing tire in a pit stop. Self-control is a guy with his dog. Loyalty is a police officer and his dog. So each one is different, and we videoed that. And then at the end of each of those, I come on and talk about how that particular principle will impact your life spiritually. And it's been very, very successful. A lot of businesses are using it. It's great for small groups. And in fast forward a little bit, all of this to me is in the providence of God. So we did that first, and then this came about. Lodestar is the guiding star, the North Star, the navigational star. This mountain back here is North Mountain. You'll see tonight there's very little, there's no ground light pollution. And so the night sky is absolutely gorgeous over here. And to me, in the providence of God, this property was a part of Lodestar. That's one of the things we plan to do here as far as equipping and training evangelists, pastors, other business leaders, is to introduce them to the Lodestar program, its character, and my part in each of it's an evangelistic outreach as well. I just feel like in the providence of God, this property was a part of that whole vision, even though I didn't have the vision at the time. So one of the things that over the years, we did crusade evangelism for years, very similar to what Billy Graham or Louis Palau was doing, only in smaller communities than Graham would go to, but tried to do the same quality of program that they did. And done a lot overseas, Romania, been in Nigeria, Kenya. So God's been very good and faithful. But something happened to me, and I'm not knocking anybody else what they choose to do, but for us, it was getting increasingly difficult to get unsaved people to our events. And it seemed to me that it was more a Christian event than an evangelistic event. Now, other people may be able to do it successfully. I'm not knocking what others do. And the last big event we did was 2002, was Springfest. It was a great success. A lot of people did get saved. I'm thankful for that. But it was very expensive. Our budget, for us, we're not a huge organization. It was right at $380,000 for 3 nights. And most of it was entertainment driven. Jars of Clay, Toby Mac, Audio Adrenaline. It's ministry, but it's $40,000, $50,000. That's a lot of money. And I just got to the place I couldn't look myself in the mirror and say, this is a good way to spend money. And the last event we did of that type was in Ohio, and in a community where I'd been several other times. And we were in the fairground. I had a great crowd. The place was packed out. But I'm out talking to people and walking through the stands because I got friends there and stuff prior to the service. And I'm backstage praying, and one of my staff came back and said, "What's going on? What's wrong?" I said, "What am I supposed to do? I'm an evangelist. We got a Christian group here tonight." And yeah, I know Christians need to be encouraged and motivated and all, but I just began to pray that God would open a door for me. And about that time, a guy called me because we had done a festival in Bristol, Tennessee. And great success. We were at Viking Center, packed the place out for 8 nights in a row. And he wanted to do something at Bristol Motor Speedway. And he called me because he was having a hard time getting churches involved, because he found out that I had done the event there. And so I said, yeah, I'd love to do that. And, we did it, and tell people the first one, I learned how not to do it because we were in the wrong place. We set up over at the drag strip, and NASCAR fans don't go to a race to go to the drag strip. They want to go to the racetrack. So, but we did it, and it was a huge learning experience. It was, we set up just like it was a festival. And I found out there's no way we could replicate this over and over again. It was too labor intensive and et cetera. So began to pray that, they gave me a vision that it worked. It could work. I don't know how detailed you want to get, but anyway, I was in the middle of a 21-day fast because my one grandson was going to have major surgery. He was born without a soft spot. I'd never heard of that. And surgery was going to be at Vanderbilt, and they had to cut the top of his head off and reshape his skull. And so I felt like the Lord asked me to fast. And I was on a 21-day fast. And I was going to Orlando, Florida to Raceway Ministries annual meeting, and then I was going to fly from there to Nashville to be with my family for Jude's surgery. And so I go there and I meet this guy, and I'm telling him, oh, by the way, the other part of that, before all this, I'm in this fast, and I talked to a friend of mine who was there last night. I said, I need a stage trailer. We need to streamline what we're doing. And I felt like the Lord gave me a vision for what it should look like. And I showed. He said, "Oh, I know who can build it for you. There's some guys out in Napa, Indiana." So I go out. I wanted to see them, drive out there, and talk to them. And they said, "Yeah, we'll do it." And they're Christians, and normally it's going to cost $200,000. I said, "But we'll do it for you for $150,000." So that's still, a lot of money that I don't have. So on the way, I said, "Okay, we'll do this, but let me see if I can raise the money." So on the way back, I stopped by some friends, and I told them what I wanted to do. He said, "Give us a couple of weeks, we'll pray about it." And so I'm driving out of the parking lot, and 10 minutes later, they call. I said, "We'll give you $100,000." And man, okay, got faith. I'll call somebody else. So the next guy said, he gave me $50,000. So I had 2 calls, and I got it. And so I'm all excited about that. I go to, but something to the Lord said, "Don't order that thing yet." So I go to Orlando, and I meet this guy, tell him what I want to do. He said, "Oh, you're going to meet my partner." So we got 2 stage trailers. So I said, okay. So rather than going to Nashville, I flew to Mobile, Alabama first and meet this guy. And I'm fasting, and he goes out and gets a steak, and I sit there and watch him. And the next morning, he said he'd send somebody to pick me up and show me the stage trailer. So he pulls this stage trailer out, which is the one we got now, and said, "What do you think?" I said, "Man, that's better than what I was planning on it," and knew it cost $400,000. And he said, what do you think?" I said, "Well, I like it." He said, what are you feeling?" I said, "Well, if you give it to me, I'll raise the money to do the events." He said, "When you want to pick it up?" And I said, "Well, you got to get a trucker to come down here." "Yeah, I'm going to give you the tractor too." "Okay, I'll get a driver." So anyway, I go, Jude's surgery is successful. I come home and meet with Beam Brothers Trucking. And I tell Jerry Beam what I wanted to do. And he said, "See, that's wonderful. But you don't want that tractor. You're going to put license on it. You got fuel in it, insurance." He said, "We got trucks everywhere. So you just get the trailer and we'll put it wherever you want it to go." And so that's what they've done. So we remodeled the trailer, changed some things in it, and it's served us really well. And thank God for it. We do about 8 NASCAR races a year. We only do day races because it's the only sporting event like it that I know anything about. Basketball games, football games, you may tailgate, but then they go home after the game. NASCAR fans, they move in on Wednesday or Thursday, and they're there for the weekend. And they don't want to go anywhere because of traffic and alcohol. And so after the race, we set up in a campground, and we provide entertainment and share the message of Christ and honor veterans. And it's been a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful experience. So that's where we are today.
Maybe someone has a question.
Yeah.
So the campground is near the racetrack.
Oh, if you go to a racetrack, there are campgrounds all. You get in Michigan, where we'll be in 2 weeks. You get up on top of our stage trailer. As far as you look to the left, to the right, in front of you, it's campers and motorhomes and tents.
Wow.
It's unbelievable. I mean, it is unbelievable.
100,000 people?
Huh?
100,000?
They'll have at Bristol. They have 300,000 people come through for the weekend. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Michigan probably 100,000 for the week, because you got the truck race, the Xfinity race, and the Cup race. Now, we don't do anything on Sundays. I'm usually at a church on Sundays because people are focused on getting in the track.
So how many nights do you do, like Wednesday night, Thursday night, Friday
No,
night?
we do. Usually Thursday night I'm in a church.
Okay.
Somewhere we'll do an outreach event at a church. I've got a show car. We bring the show car, have several drivers come over and interview the drivers, et cetera, at a local church for their outreach event. Friday night, Saturday night, we're in the campground.
Okay. And you bring in name bands?
No.
More like the guys that you had yesterday?
Well, I have a garage band that
Okay.
plays everybody. I mean, if you get like I don't need a big name band. They don't care. They just want good music.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
Well, we really enjoyed your musicians last night.
oh yeah,
They were great.
they're great. But I mean, you don't need a name band. Jeff Pullen, the second band that we had last night.
Uh-huh.
He works with me. I got a band out of Pennsylvania, Jess Zimmerman band, and we usually have two bands. And I've given an invitation to Desperado. I mean, everybody's desperate. The old Eagles song. We don't. It's not all Christian. We play very little Christian music. It's Sweet Home Alabama. That's the national anthem for NASCAR fans. So it's a party. It really is. I mean, as a lot of liquid consumption goes on, but I tell you, it's on. First time we did it at Dover, I had some volunteers with me. And, I mean, crowd's rowdy. They're yelling. So I had three guys. They said, "We better get." When I came on stage, they said, "They're killing." But it's like the Holy Spirit just puts a blanket on the place. They know they're messed up. You don't have to preach a long sermon. You share the gospel, and I mean it's phenomenal what God's doing. I love it.
Do you mobilize the local church in advance? Is there follow-up?
A couple of things. Most of these people are not from the local area.
That's true. Good point.
Okay,
Yeah.
they're from all over the place. I was given an app. Now I didn't use it last night. I normally do. But I just tell them, get your phone out, and I want you to download the Victory Weekend app. Just go to the App Store, download it. I'll send you a scripture verse every day. Follow-up has been the biggest issue, but we feel like it's working. A couple of things about NASCAR fans. Most churches, and this is not good for the church, don't want them. I'm serious. They do not. These people have walked away from the church. They have a respect for God, but most of them are either alcoholic or they drink. They swear. At Daytona last year, the crowd was, when I got up, there was over this section over here, probably had 3,000 people there. And they were pretty, and this guy, this wouldn't happen in church. He turns around, takes his hat and says, "Shut the F up and let the preacher talk."
Really? Wow.
And he turns around and says, "Okay, preacher, you can go ahead now." Okay. But he got saved that night. So, I mean, you got, it takes some boldness. When we first went to Dover, I couldn't get in a campground. But I got to know the president of Dover Speedway, and in fact, he has my devotional book by his nightstand. He committed Christian, and he said, "Steve, the only place we got is Lot 10." And I said, "You don't want to go there." I said, "Why?" He said, "The police don't even want to go to Lot 10." He said, "It's terrible." I said, "You let me go and I'll go." He said, "What?" I said, "I'll go. I don't care." And so we did. And I mean, first year we were there, I mean, there were strip poles in the back of trucks and I just go and shut it down. So look, if you want to go to your campsite and do that, fine. But you're not going to do it here. It's a family-friendly event. And, 3 years ago, I was there and these guys came by and I just walked, I left the stage, went over and said, "You got to leave." He said, "Who's going to make us?" I said, "Me." He said, he said, "You going to make us leave?" I said, "Yeah. I'm going back up there and get on that stage and we're going to shut the whole thing down and I'm going to tell them it's because of you all." He said, "We'll leave." You got to have a little boldness, and but now what's happened at Lot 10 over the past, we've been there now for 6 years, and it's the number one requested campground, and it's family friendly. I mean, there's still a lot of drinking going on, but none of that stuff. And they did a survey this 2 years ago, last 2 years. Most of the people there cannot tell you who won the race last year. They can't tell you, anything about the race. But they said the reason we want to be here is because of Victory Weekend. And they're recognized. Bristol is now paying us to come.
Wow.
Because of the difference that has happened.
So is the partnerships with these NASCAR events, are they with the individual racetrack or is it with NASCAR?
No, it's with the individual racetrack. Yeah, I've gotten to be friends with, Bristol, almost the president and most of his staff are committed Christians. They'll have the Bible out on their desk. There are two basic groups that control NASCAR: the Smith family and the France family. And Bruton Smith, his son Marcus is now head of it. Marcus is a very committed. In fact, Marcus was planning to go to seminary, and Billy Graham said, "Don't. God's given you a ministry. Use it." And so he's head of all of the tracks. They own Charlotte, Bristol, about 10. I mean, Kentucky. So.
Do you ever have any of the Christian owners, like you've got Joe Gibbs Racing,
Mm-hmm.
I think Hendricks,
Yeah,
and the
yeah.
Interstate Battery Car.
Oh yeah.
I
Mm-hmm.
think that owner's a believer.
Yeah, he's very committed. Norm
Do they
Miller.
ever give testimony?
Drivers do, not drivers do. Yeah, a number of the drivers. I usually have at least 2-3 drivers at each of the events that'll come over. Fans love their drivers, and I interview them, and so yeah.
Wow.
Other questions?
It's time.
Kind of unrelated to the conversation we've been going down. If you do Google Maps and you type in Lodestar Mountain Inn, it says permanently closed. Did there used to be one?
If you Google
So
Lodestar,
go to Google Maps
uh-huh.
and make Lodestar Mountain Inn your destination. It comes up with the address on Walnut Creek Lane or whatever it is, and then a little print at the bottom it says permanently closed.
Walnut Springs Lane is permanently closed.
I took it to mean that it was the inn itself.
Okay, I'll need to check it out because no, we're not permanent. We're permanently open.
Well, at least he
Well,
got
you're
it.
just
We
kind of
didn't even
opening
get
it.
that.
Yeah, we're just opening. Yeah, we haven't had an official opening yet. This is a soft opening.
You were saying something about these big events becoming more like a Christian.
You should reach your destination by 6:24 p.m.
Yeah. Christian events only,
Yeah.
you still do big things or
No.
anymore?
Well, like we'll do 14 races for less money than we'd spend on one festival.
That's
And 90% of the people we're in front of are not walking with the Lord. Where, we had to work hard to get 5% of the people in attendance who were unsaved. And spending all kinds of money. I mean, Ricky Skaggs, and Ricky's a great friend. He'd always come for half price. I've had Charlie Daniels come for half price. Jars of Clay, Toby Mac, Audio Adrenaline, Mercy Me, Casting Crowns. I love all their music. But Joe Blow out here that's not walking with the Lord, he doesn't have a clue who any of those people are. What you're doing, you're paying a huge amount of money to get a bunch of Christians there. Yeah. That's me. I'm not knocking somebody that wants to do that, but I just don't see the numbers. And so I got to the place I could not look myself in the mirror and say, this is a good way to spend money. That's for me. If somebody else wants to do it, that's fine. But it wasn't working for me.
So when you do the events in different places, how is the local church responding to you? Are you taking their help or?
Oh, and at the racetrack,
Yeah, in different places. It's different thing than the church.
it's a love-hate relationship in every community.
Yeah.
In fact, there's a church in Darlington, South Carolina, that had a sign up in their yard: "Race fans not welcome." Sick. Now, again, there's a lot of debauchery. There's a lot of drinking, and most people, like if you live in that community, they don't want to be there. Traffic is a disaster. They leave. So your church attendance goes way down that weekend. Now there are some churches that catch the vision, and they'll send a team. Raceway Ministries. There's a Raceway Ministries in every community that's sponsored by local churches. We have great relationship with Raceway Ministries. And so that's what we do, partnering with them, especially in Bristol and in Dover. In fact, we're doing a co-fundraising event in Dover this fall with Raceway Ministries, because they see us as benefiting them and blessing them and partnering with them. In fact, their attendance at their they set up in a campground. But since they started working with, it's been a great relationship. So, but it's more through that, a group of people within a church that are evangelists, that have a vision for reaching. But it's a challenge. Because most churches, and I love the church. I'm committed to the church. Don't want anything to do with the racetrack, because of what it brings to the community. And to me, hey man, the mission fields come to us, let's go get them.
So that just happens here, or do you do the international as well?
Well, since this happened, and I've got invitations to Kenya and to Tanzania. I've been to Romania probably 40 times.
But this would be a traditional kind of festival.
Yes, they work. Yeah, festivals work, and
No, but the invitation are for the NASCAR, or is it what kind of, like, or to do the festival in those countries?
in those countries, no, I love doing festivals in those countries. I mean, we did a wonderful festival in Mola, Kenya, with the African Evangelical Enterprise. In fact, the tent that I used to have is now in, Bishop Malunde?
Yeah, no, Mulandi.
Okay, he has my tent.
Oh, and I also know African Evangelistic.
Okay, and we did a crusade in Nakuru, and I preached at Bishop Mark's church.
Makarioke.
Yeah.
So in those places, do you see the same problem? Like
No.
Yeah, that's what I just.
No.
Great.
The festival still works,
Amen.
and thank God for that. See, when Billy Graham came on the scene, it was war was just over, and it was a cultural happening. I mean, but see, if they choose to come to my event, they say no to probably about 20 other good things. We did an event in Atlanta a number of years ago, south side of Atlanta, at Atlanta Motor Speedway. It was a good event. We had Randy Travis, and I forget who all, several big name groups. But that same night, some other big country music singer was in Atlanta. I counted 12 things that people could do. There was an Atlanta Braves game going on. There was just all kinds of stuff that you're competing with.
Yeah.
And so, but when Billy was, it was the only game in town, really. People were coming together. War was over. It was time to, and it worked. And thank God, it worked for us for a number of years. And if it's working for you, keep at it. But for me, I just wanted to go where sinners were.
Well, Steve, I love you, brother. You've been friends a long time, and I know you shared this vision with me from the beginning. But first of all, just this place is such a blessing. I love hearing your story and how God's provided, and I just what a need to invest in evangelists and pastors, and I love that. And just what gets me so excited is just how you've been so innovative, and being able to reach people that won't come into the door of a church, right?
Them.
I mean, so you're doing the work of an evangelist. You're getting out there and reaching them for Jesus. So
That's
anyway, I love you.
Amen.
I'm excited. man.
Love you too,
Very
dude.
good.
Praise God.
Very encouraging.
No.
So thank
So,
you. Yeah.
Bill Bright shared with me years ago, why would you ask so little of such a big God? And, of course, my feeling is probably there's going to be more people in heaven as a result of Bill Bright than anybody else because of the 4 spiritual laws. Just in Campus Crusade and now Crew, he was a great man of God. Now, Billy Graham, I love Billy. He was a great mentor. I had the privilege of being at his funeral. I was honored to be invited to that. He had a great impact on my life. I just believe you ought to use every available means to reach every available person. So just pray for creativity, that God would open doors, and if he opens that door, run through it. Now, I didn't say anything about the military here. We're working with 2 organizations. That's probably above my pay grade because post-stress, but they're organizations that they've got a program, they just don't have a place. And so we're going to make this available. We'll probably run 3, 4, maybe 6 events for military, and they like small. They don't want big because if they get in a large group, they shut down. About most of them, the size of a squad, military squad, is what they like to have. So
For the military,
yeah,
the post-traumatic
stress.
disorder.
For those of us who are non-military, how large is a squad?
It's about 6, 7.
Okay.
But they prefer usually, if it's couples, they like 4 to 5, no more. Some they just sort of shut down. That's what they tell me. So
The FCA huddle concept.
yeah, yeah.
My son is in the Navy. He's a nuclear mechanic,
Mhm.
and he has 6 friends in the last 8 years that have killed themselves,
Yeah.
including the captain of his boat.
Mhm.
The nukes are, of the military, of all the military, are the highest population within all of the military to commit
Mhm.
suicide.
So what's the reason for that? Stress? Or fear?
Well, on subs, they can't. They go out for months. They're under the water. A submarine officially can't dock in any station, so they're literally under the water. There are war games that happen that aren't games, that aren't publicized. That they have to go quiet in certain waters.
Yeah.
So they sink as they're sinking, and if whoever's looking for them isn't gone in a certain amount of time, when you get to a certain depth, you can't get back up. So there's all kinds of
Stress.
The fire breaks out within 3 minutes. If you haven't put it out, everybody dies. There's all kinds of stress. His hairline, he's 29. His hairline is back to here.
Yeah.
It's
Well, the other thing, a lot of people say, this didn't happen in World War II, Korea. Well, I think it was happening, maybe not. We didn't know what it was. But the difference now is I've met young men and women that have been deployed over the past 20 years, 12, 13, 14 times. Just think what that does to a family. One, and then they've seen things that no human being should ever have to endure.
they can't talk.
Multiple times. I told a guy last night, he said, he saw his 2 best friends blown up in front of him. He said, why didn't that, he said, I still don't understand why it wasn't me.
And there's so much, just you hear when you watch like Jason Bourne kind of stuff and you hear all that weird technology, so much of it is true. They're not allowed to tell when they deploy or when they come back.
Yeah.
And they can't even message because it's true that once you're in a certain level, like he can't ever go out of the country because he's a commodity, because he can run a nuclear plant now. And so he is a commodity to foreign governments, and they know.
Kidnap kind of a thing?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And right now, like, so for phones, if your phone is on, literally it's a walkie-talkie. People can hear everything that you're saying if your phone is on. and it happens so often, especially to those guys at certain levels.
Yeah.
And we don't even think about it. We just say, "Oh, that was a cool movie. Oh, those things are real." And so
No, it's real.
there's so much they can't talk about.
Yeah. I was told about, I guess I believe it, I don't know. They can hear everything that's going on right here.
Absolutely, from space.
Yeah.
Yeah, it pinpoint. They can actually, they know how many people are in the room.
Yeah.
All of that.
Yep.
Yeah. If they, that's why getting stressed out about Big Brother. It's already here.
It's already here.
You go to China, you can't reverse it.
Yeah.
Just-
Other questions for Steve? Well, we're gonna be together for a few days, so
Yeah.
thank you. Thank
Yeah.
you for allowing us to be here.
Amen.
We appreciate it. We're honored.
One thing I'd say about this book here too, scriptures are written all over these walls, behind the walls. And what we did, we,
Like on the joists and
Huh?
like that?
yeah, all the joys, yeah.
Okay.
And so every room, I recorded the scriptures that are there. So if you want to look through it,
That's cool,
Yeah.
Steve.
so they're written all over every room. So
As you listen to Steve, what gifts did you sense that the Lord had given Steve, or has given Steve, not in the past, in the present? Any spiritual gifts that are listed in the New Testament?
Definitely discernment.
Discernment,
Obedience.
Faith.
faith,
Compassion.
compassion.
I think wisdom, how he use wisdom, how to kind of navigate or innovate a new model of kind of evangelism, of reaching people where they're at. I think that's Spirit of God giving that.
With the victory weekend.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, to go from one model, which is worked well, I mean, plow the festival model, which has been great, but then to hone in where the people are at and reaching a whole segment that the church really isn't being as effective,
Mhm.
reaching. I think that's Spirit of God giving wisdom, discernment, and faith, someone said too.
So some of you weren't able to be there last night, but what was last night about? Maybe, Mike, why don't you summarize what happened last night in 5 minutes or less, just for those that weren't there? Because it was an event,
Yeah, well, basically it was to honor veterans for Memorial Day, which for those not from our culture, those are usually people who've served in the military, but also first responders, police, fire, people that have lost their lives in the line of duty, but also not just remembering them, but those who did serve and are still alive. And so Steve really addressed them and spoke to them. He mentioned earlier he had a medal created, and so all of the veterans that were there came forward and put a medal around them and then gave them Jesus. And it was pretty quick as far as the sermon.
right?
That was quick. 10 minutes?
I'd say less, 6 or 7.
Yeah, it was really.
How many veterans came on, would you say, like in the crowd? Just
The veterans that went forward, I think my photo, if I look at it again, it's probably about 40 or 50.
Mm-hmm.
That's all right.
Yeah, a good 40,
Yeah,
very minimum, maybe up to 60.
yeah.
Yeah.
on stage.
No, they were just in front,
Just up front.
Yeah.
and then,
Prayed for them
yeah.
afterwards,
Yeah.
for the veterans before he did the gospel.
I thought something that, I have a nephew who's a Boy Scout. I was thinking, I mean, they had people that gave them medals, but it would be a great function to have a Boy Scout troop to take the medals and put them over the veterans or something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, part of my observation yesterday was, to me, it was very much community event, variety of people there. And Luke Weaver did the counselor orientation. Some of you know Luke. And they were just encouraging kind of a soft sell approach for the counselors. So we just kind of walked around the crowd after that, and people raised their hand, or even they didn't. We had the book, we showed the book. They wanted a book, we had a conversation, gave them the book, prayed with them if possible. So
Yes,
it was.
they weren't called forward because
No.
they were in, collapsible chairs or sitting around barbecue, bench tables, things like that. So counselors were just raising the hands and going with people.
But like, Reed has done in the capital of our state a festival, but it's also where he lives. But, I was thinking with Steve or myself or any of us, how can an evangelist have an annual event in their community that actually is touching the community, and that the church is, reaching out to the community and continually giving the gospel, but honoring the community, building positive relationships, doing something positive. I thought it was a great event in that. Not typically if we think of a festival or massively evangelistic, though the gospel was there and people responded. You're doing something good for the community. You're building a good reputation, even for yourself, as an evangelist, or and the churches that work together. It's not just the evangelist. So, so evangelist, I to me, that's the major thing to keep thinking and talking about, particularly with our international members here, as well as women. What is the unique role of the evangelist anyway? Why did Christ give to the church apostles, prophets, evangelists, pastors, and teachers? Why evangelists? It seems to me the popular thing, everyone wants to be a pastor, and ultimately, if you reach the position of Alan as a bishop, you've arrived in life. You've become a bishop. But the Bible doesn't say that. In my opinion, the Bible says that there are apostles, prophets, evangelists, pastors, and teachers. And so what is the uniqueness of the evangelist? And are you or me, or are we evangelists? How do we carry out that role in the church? Being an evangelist and equipping the church in evangelism. It's a topic that needs to go in depth. It needs to be broadcast to the church. We need to recruit young people. We need to model it ourselves, our whole lives. We need to invite others to be evangelists. But we need to clarify what it is. And it's not really a what, it's a who. Evangelists are people, men or women. How do you live out that life as an evangelist? And in this particular class, how do we lead? How do we lead the church in terms of that? So just to review for the three that weren't here this morning, I went through with the others Psalm 78. Psalm 78, which, anyone have their Bible? I didn't bring my Bible.
Verses of 77.
Yeah, 77. But basically, here's two Psalms, 77 and 78, and they end with talking about the leaders of Israel. First, Moses and Aaron, and Psalm 77, I think it's 19, said that God led Israel through the sea, and I love it, though his footprints were not seen. And he led them through Moses and Aaron. Thank you. Let me go back. We're 77. How do I go back?
Okay, here. See the red.
Skill development, Tim. Use a computer. Your path led through the sea. That's there, I know it is.
77.
19. Your way through the mighty waters, though your footprints were not seen. So to me, Scripture is revealing it was God leading Israel, though no one could see it. But it was God. Then you led your people. What did they see? Like a flock by the hand of Moses and Aaron. So what people saw was God's hand through Moses and Aaron. So that's one Psalm. Then you get to Psalm 78, which is a long rendition of the unfaithfulness of man and the faithful mercy of God, and how the Israelites again and again rebel and sin, and they're punished, and God forgives them, and but finally it gets to the end verse 69, really, he built his sanctuary like the heights, like the earth that he established forever. So he did build a sanctuary in Zion. So in Israel's history, finally Solomon built the temple, and it was a glorious day. That the glory days of Israel was David and Solomon, and the city built, and the temple built, and God's glory filling the temple. But then it says, he chose David his servant and took him from the sheep pens, from tending the sheep, brought him to be the shepherd of his people Jacob, of Israel his inheritance. So he took David from the sheep pen, and we talked about what maybe he learned as being a shepherd and what he learned about sheep.
Never put this paragraph.
And I always remind people that shepherds that don't smell like sheep are not very good shepherds. You got to know the people, and we need to know people. We need to understand people. And if you go back to the Psalm, he's given you a philosophy or a theology of people. We're all a bunch of sinners, and we're going astray, and we're not going to follow God. And then also theology proper. What's God like? How does God respond to these people? Well, there's discipline, but there's also forgiveness and mercy. And if God had not been merciful, he wiped everybody out. Again, like after the flood. But anyway, at the end, and David shepherded them. God chose David. He brought him, and he shepherded them, Israel, Jacob, with integrity of heart, and with skillful hands he led them. Evangelists as leaders, there's two primary areas of life we have to focus on. One is our heart, integrity, purity, holiness, consistency. We got a people that love God and behave as we love God. Say we love God and love God. Honor God, be faithful. Issues of the heart, of character. Secondly, with skillful hands, he led them. So my challenge this morning for us this week, and I hope we learn from each other, sharing what are the skills an evangelist needs to know. And for all of us, particularly those in the doctoral program, as you move out to train people and really call evangelists to a lifetime of being evangelists, it is somewhat of an unanswered question right now in history of the church. What are the skills of the evangelist? There are a few, but I think it's really unanswered. It's unanswered in the curriculum of the universities and colleges and seminaries in America. Because there's only a handful that's even trying to do it. So I would assume that the hundreds out there that aren't doing it, they haven't even asked the question. So what's the answer? So we really need to, it's an important point of history that you particularly, and maybe me encourages along, we answer that question. This is what an evangelist needs to know. This is what an evangelist needs to do. And we need to do it for a lifetime. We don't need to see it as a stepping stone to something else. We need to fulfill the call that God has given in our life to preach the gospel to as many people as we can and train others to do the same thing. And many methods, not one method, to do that. So that's kind of, I guess, to me, the broad outline of this week. And beyond this week and beyond the discussion, that I hope it's two tracks that you run on. The character, the integrity of heart, and the skills. What are the many skills, but what are the most important skills that evangelists need to not only know, they need to master, and they need to train other people in those skills. And that becomes somewhat defined also by who you're going to reach or how you're going to reach those people. But anyway, I'm excited about the week. I'm excited about you guys. You're an answer to my prayer, to what God put in my heart many years ago, to try the best that I can to call evangelists to follow God and to equip evangelists to serve the Lord Jesus Christ. So that's kind of the tracks for this week.
Thanks for arranging this, Coach. This is great. Thank you.
Well, thanks, Steve. And I hope as the program moves forward that we can take evangelists to various contexts of the world, since it is global evangelism, and be there and do things together. And someday, maybe some of you will host us in your country, and we'll bring a class there and do evangelism. Train, yeah. We can do that. I was thinking a week in Nairobi and a week in Kampala. We could do that pretty easy, huh?
As long as we do some evangelism over there.
Oh,
Yes, yeah.
But June, it's what like, oh, you might.
Next year, I mean, as of today, next year we plan to be in Portland, yes. Yeah. God could change that, I don't know, but yeah.
Because this is lovely.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. So why don't we just have a little prayer and then see how we can help here together. So anyway, Alan, why don't you close us in prayer?
Lord, what an honor and a privilege for us to be here. Thank you, Lord, that we can sit and learn from people you called and you've taken them through many processes. And Lord, we feel so privileged and so be in such a class. And we thank you that you've called us. We pray that you bless our time together as we fellowship with one another, as we learn from each other, and that, Father, as you continue to prepare us for this great call.